Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Rise of Kyoshi chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 27, which is called Jews. So, we get the fight between Kyoshi and Zhu Ping on here. That is all this chapter is. It is the full fight, basically. So we saw the first blow of the fight, Zhu Ping being revealed to be a lightning bender as he hit Kyoshi in the fans at the start of this fight. It's a great reveal, just the idea of the perfect kind of duelist ability, lightning with just the quick strike at the start of the fight, taking Kyoshi completely by surprise. And we start off immediately with the description of this effect. Her spine nearly snapped itself in two. Each drop of her blood had been stung by a viper bat. Her hands felt numb and tacky. The skin had been burned off them. And that is going to be a permanent injury for Kyoshi, one that she continues to deal with over the rest of the book and ongoing. There was a thump and a jolt through her body. An eternity later she realized it was her knees hitting the ground as she collapsed. The rest of her torso followed. Her headdress went tumbling as her jaw impacted against the platform. So just this devastating blow at the start of the fight, just nearly taking her out almost immediately with just one hit of lightning. That is how powerful lightning is. And as well, you learn basically over the course of this chapter that most people aren't even aware of what this ability is. They don't know what type of bender Zhu Ping is until the very end of this fight. That is how unknown in a way lightning generation is as an ability at this point in time. So yeah, we just get Zhu Ping continuing to just, he does the taunting thing here. He talks to her as he just continues to hit her with lightning. I think 6 bolts of lightning over the course of this fight, including a couple of really long streams of lightning. And he says, it didn't have to be this way. You had the greatest gift in the world, my respect, and you threw it away. For what? Don't think I didn't notice how you looked at me since last night, staring at me with condemnation in your eyes. What you don't understand is that men like me are beyond judgment. I do as I will, and the world must bear my discretions with submission and gratitude. And yet we do get here, though, this is an interesting one, the sort of turning point in the way of the fight. What Zhu didn't seem to know was that none of the lightning strikes beyond the first had hurt her to the same degree. Kyoshi played dead while she came to her senses. There was still a searing heat that enveloped her upper half, separated by a layer of fabric. Her survival could have had something to do with the chainmail in her jacket, exposed by the tears and scrapes from last night's raid. Better to say pressed against the ground until she saw an opening. And yeah, she gets hit again with a really long continuous stream of lightning here. We get the idea here. Kyoshi smelled her clothes smoking as it washed over her body. He was desecrating her. Stop, she heard Rangi cry from far away. Please stop. And here's a really good moment. This is it, the avatar state activation point, and here is the reason why it happens. It was the hopelessness in her voice that set Kyoshi over the edge, the complete surrender of a girl who would have been invincible if not for her love. Kyoshi had put that weakness in Rangi, and Zhu had torn it open. He was torturing the person Kyoshi cared about most in the world. And by every spirit of every star in the night sky, he would pay for that. She reached out and grabbed Zhu's ankle. The sudden course of lightning into his own body made him squeal, an undignified, high-pitched noise that was music to her ears. He stopped the flow in time to be dumped on his back, Kyoshi completely upending him. Her eyes felt like they were leaking, not with tears, but light, so Avatar state is now activated here. She forces her way through a lightning bolt here as it activates. And it activates because Kyoshi is upset that her being injured is causing Rangi to be upset. That what activates the Avatar state is Rangi's reaction to Kyoshi being hurt, which is a kind of interesting approach in all of this. So here's what it says. She briefly thought about swinging Zhu overhead and dashing him against the ground or twisting him like a wet rag beneath her bare hands. He was surely more fragile than a solid iron bar. No, he needed to be shown what a true force of nature looked like. His men had to see him beaten not by strength, but by retribution from the elements themselves. She switched her grip on him from his foot to his collar. This is where she goes into the air with the avatar state, primarily airbending here, but she also uses firebending to basically set the field around Zhu's men on fire. This is her fully putting on the show here, to get across, like, this is going to be a devastating defeat for Zu here that will, you know, hurt the morale, basically, of the entire Yellowneck. That's what she's doing here. So, Kyoshi looked down the length of her arm at Zu. He shielded his eyes from hers, her inner light too harsh to take in. His mouth gaped open and shut like a fish. The air was moving too fast for him to breathe. "You forget, Zu," she said, and a legion of voices synchronized in the eye of a storm. "There is always someone who stands above you in judgment." It was possible that other more powerful people spoke through her in this moment. There was a chance she was simply a puppet beholden to their collective will. But the unassailable feeling of control told her that wasn't true. The voices could lend her insight, eloquence, but they couldn't take over. Many of them seemed to disapprove of what she was doing. Let them, Kyoshi thought. She was in command. She brought Zu's face closer to hers. "What will you do now?" she said, "knowing that your every step will have consequences?" And his response to this is, like the character that he is, he will not accept this sort of judgment from anyone. He just stares in the face of the Avatar and breathes fire at her, and that's his response. And it's so interesting, the response here. "So he's a firebender," she thought, as she diverted the flames off to the side with a tilt of her head. That is the power that we're dealing with here. A breath of fire from a very powerful firebender who can generate lightning. Kyoshi just tilts her head to deflect it, bends with just the motion of her neck, basically. That is pure power here. And then, yeah, just to reveal here, you know, so he's a firebender. That up until this point, he just used lightning, and it takes him using fire to reveal to Kyoshi that it is a firebender technique. So, this is the response. The lightning generation was unique, though, a refinement of the art, a singular talent. She had so many questions for Zu about that. Too bad she would never get the chance to ask them. Both Lao Ji and Jianzu were right in some measure. Short-sighted men like Tei and Zu were parasites who gnawed at the very structures they exploited for power and survival. They were blind to the fact that they existed not through their own merit, but due to the warped form of charity the world had decided to give them. And Zu had exhausted his. Kyoshi was the only thing holding him up. She opened her hand and watched him fall. So that is how Kyoshi kills Zu Ping-an, is by just dropping him from a height, a massive height, because it was described earlier on in the chapter just how high up she was with him. And that there's a simplicity to that, but sheer power in the sense of she didn't overwhelm him with bending, but just takes him up really high, drops him, and lets that do the work. But yeah, she gets back down. We see a little bit of a nice moment here with Wei as he's waiting there, and he's just like, the Avatar, he actually bows to Kyoshi as she tells him to leave. So it's just revealed that Wei is only strong when he's around someone who is kind of controlling him in a way, who's powerful. And all of her friends are like, "Are you still possessed? Are you again?" She tells them to come out, and this is where it's revealed here. She wanted to tell them this time she hadn't gone berserk. She'd been fully aware of her powers, heightening with whatever vast reserves of energy the Avatar had access to. She'd been fully aware of killing Zu. So that's important to get, that the idea of like, oh, she was in the Avatar state, so she didn't really have a choice. But no, the book takes the time to say specifically that despite the Avatar state, she was fully in control. This was not the defense mechanism Avatar state making the decisions for her. She was in control. And when they described that basically other avatars in the middle of the Avatar state voice were basically disagreeing with what she was doing here, I think that gets across the idea. She was the one in control. She did this. She made the decision. But yeah, the end of the chapter is basically Kyoshi falls to her knees again. Rangi notices her hands are still badly injured. They were riddled with burns from where the lightning had struck her fans. And they know, we have to get her to a healer as she loses consciousness. So that's the end of the chapter here. So yeah, excellent fight. It's quick, but it didn't need to be anything more. The simplicity of just the book's first reveal of a special bender in a lightning bender here, as a way for him to have full control of the fight. Of course, that means the Avatar state would activate, and because Kyoshi hasn't really done much as the Avatar specifically yet, The Avatar state being the end of this fight, I think works perfectly here, because it's her first, decision as the Avatar here. She specifically chose to go against Lao Ji's teachings and not kill Governor Tay previously. Here, in this other situation, the results of who they freed as part of their first job, this is what she decides to step up as. As the Avatar, like she said in the previous chapter, she came into this knowing that this is what she has to do kind of for the world, not just for herself, for the group, or anything like that. Not because she has a vendetta against them like she does Jianzhu, but because this will be better for the world. And what's talked about in the last chapter as well as this one, of just people like him just think they're above everything else. He was never going to change. Kyoshi waiting to see if he would do something was ultimately just wasted time, because he was always just going to be this way. And when she had complete control, she offered him the chance of just like, what will you do, knowing that, consequences, me is here. He just, spits fire in her face. That tells you everything you need to know about Zhu Ping'an, and she just decided there and then that the world would be a better place without this guy, because of what he did in the past, because of what he's about to do here. It's Jianzhu's, basically what she's known about Jianzhu, plus what she's learned from Lao Ji, plus a little bit of her own experience so far, all coming together to form this sense of justice here as she makes the decision to kill Zhu Ping'an. And it works so well, because this ultimately is the thing that completely informs, stuff like why she's so set in stone about, like, even though she didn't directly kill Qin the Conqueror, she would have if she had to. She was prepared to do that, and as far as she's concerned, she was the one who killed him. And the reason she's able to think like that is because of moments like this that have happened earlier on in her career as the Avatar. And it works so well, because it isn't just her executing Lao Ji's advice perfectly. It's also not her becoming Jianzhu or anything like that, but it's taking little bits that she's kind of heard from both of them. It's the justification stuff that Lao Ji's talked about. It's Jianzhu's ultimate view on most Dao Fei, but Kyoshi obviously has a different approach, because she realizes there are Dao Fei like the Flying Opera Company out there who are much more honorable and just have their own reason for not kind of like abiding by the law, but don't do anything that bad, don't hurt anyone, don't kill anyone, versus the worst of the worst like the Yellownecks, who do just kill people. And it's her adding all of that together to make this decision as the Avatar to kill someone. And it's big, because it's the opposite of Aang, basically. This is the type of decision that like Aang wouldn't make. He specifically didn't make this. He found a different way. He was the character who of course had to keep the air nomad traditions alive. As the last airbender, he couldn't kill someone. He had to keep that alive as the last airbender, and was able to do that. But here's Kyoshi just making the decision that she has to do this. And I like those different approaches, because Aang went to Kyoshi for advice about this, and of course he got the advice from Kyoshi because of what informs her own opinions and stuff like that. It all comes together, I think, really, really well, and it's powerful. Now, of course, this means that like the Yellownecks are without leadership and stuff like that, and realistically are going to scatter. They're not all gone. But what happens in the aftermath of this is, of course, most of them escape and sort of tell this story about Kyoshi as effectively being a monster, because none of them fully grasp the idea that it's the Avatar here. They just saw this being just kill their leader, and that's the legend that sort of comes out of this situation here. So Kyoshi's first kill as the Avatar kind of ends up getting kind of warped in a way, as we'll see in a little bit. It's not too big of a plot point, but that's what ends up happening. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this chapter. What are your thoughts on it? Kyoshi killing Zhu in the Avatar state after a pretty, descriptive, brutal fight. What are your thoughts on this chapter? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.